Welcome to Backyard Cigars. I received a package and a letter a few weeks ago from George at the vintage cigar store. And he sent me this letter, and at first I didn't really know what to make of it. He said, Jose, I have included approximately 3 ounces, 1/4 of the box of 1931 to 1961 pre-embargo era Cuban tobacco under the brand Alcazar. I'm saying it with that accent, but Alcazar, Alcazar, that would be it. I tried researching it, but all I get is a new brand with the same name. Within the last month, I purchased the box from a contact in Valencia, Spain. He knew it was tobacco, but I couldn't really read his full description in Spanish. Translation issue. I understand that. And was hoping for cigars. I thought it was strange not seeing the usual markings. And I have never seen a box of tobacco sealed from that era. I probably would not have opened it if I knew. Duh. I weighed a number two Baltagas at 5 ounces, point five ounces. So perhaps your roller can do a blend and get maybe 10 cigars. Ring to be determined. I hope to have you send me 3 to check out. If they are good, I'll send you the rest of the tobacco. Please let me know if there are any costs involved. I am also looking forward to hearing what you think about a few other cigars. And a few of these cigars are vintage cigars from the 50s, as far back as the 1920s, and Jamaican cigars as well, which you've already seen my review on the vintage Robert L. Gore Jamaican tobacco cigar. Thanks again, George. Now, he's obviously being very generous in wanting to only just 3 to check out, and really this isn't a strings attached type of deal. This is just, hey, I've got something, I really don't know what to do with it. Maybe you can do something with it, and if you did, it'd be pretty cool. And whether it sends me the rest or not, it doesn't really matter. The experience is already in my mind shaping up to be a pretty cool one. Um, and I have already done some research on the company, and I want to talk a little bit about that. Um, the tobacco is a short filler tobacco. I'm not going to show it on camera right now because if I think if I showed it to you right now, it might spoil the intrigue of what you expect or what you think it may be or how it can even be utilized. But it's short filler tobacco, well preserved, from that era, pre-embargo era, from Cuba, 1931 to 1961. And basically in not having the in having the translation issue, he was unable to determine if it was cigars or something else. So he ended up with a box of raw tobacco. Well, I wouldn't call it raw, right? I mean, it was processed, it was fermented, it was aged, and then obviously further aged throughout the duration of time. And it was well kept. And from what I gather, from looking at it, it's unimpressive to look at. But the magical things that a roller can do with something like that, sometimes one can't easily imagine it because you just, unless you're in the biz and you're doing that, which I'm not, you kind of think to yourself, yeah, I mean, what can I really do with this little amount of tobacco? And you have to be use it sparingly, obviously, and incorporate it into a blend that is going to spread itself out. So, like the letter says, you can get at least 10 cigars out of, but also enough of it within each cigar that it lends something to the cigar. Now, the smaller ring gauge, which usually gives way to a different expression of of a cigar smoking experience in regards to the vitola size, wrapper to filler ratio, all of those things. We've heard of those things, but I think it's even more critical here because of the fact that there is so little of it, and we're gonna blend it. At least this is my plan. I'll tell you more about my plan in a second. Um, in the blending process, you want to highlight that tobacco, in this case, this rare 1931, 1961 Alcazar Cuban tobacco. And you also don't want to bury it, right? You don't want to make it to be something where you're trading for its name. I mean, none of these cigars are ever going to market, but um, in the case of like the Camacho pre-embargo, right, which uses a small amount of pre-embargo Cuban tobacco within the blend. No one knows how much. Everyone pretty much assumes that it's a small amount. But when you smoke that cigar, and I've smoked it many times, you do get a little bit of essence of the Cuban twang or of the Cuban strength and some characteristics that are similar to a Cuban smoking experience. It's not the same as smoking a Cuban puro or even an old-fashioned Cuban blend with Puerto Rican tobacco, let's say, but it does give you a feeling of something extra. And that all goes into how well the master blender, the blender, decides to utilize the tobaccos that he has on hand. And in the case of the Camacho pre-embargo, they seem to be doing a pretty good job. I don't know how much pre-embargo tobacco they have. Apparently, they've they've had a lot, and they continue to make that cigar. And every time you read the description, you'll read that maybe these won't last long, and obviously they won't last long, or who knows how long they can go, or if as time goes by, the ratio probably gets a little smaller or not. But in this case, we have here a certain amount of tobacco, and we're I'm gonna try and see if something gets done here. Um, I reached out to my peoples at Martinez Cigars, and they were very receptive to the idea of me bringing in the tobacco and seeing what could happen and talking about a blend, and I kind of like in my mind, once I did the history, the archive history on the company, I kind of thought of a blend that could be used, that is just simple, straight to the point. And um and and all of these things I'm going to explain to you. My plan is really to take the tobacco to Martinez Cigars and have a talk with the master blender Jesus there, as well as with the roller. We'll talk about, we've already talked about the blend in question, and I told him I think first, the vitola size I think should be a Corona vitola 44 ring gauge to yield more cigars. Second, I think Indonesian Sumatra wrapper and binder, unless, of course, a Dominican binder would be preferable, which is a question that I posed to him, and he said, "No, I think you're right with the Indonesian wrapper and binder." And then I explained to him, "Well, I'm also going by the fact that the original brand of Alcazar used um, Indonesian Sumatran wrappers and binders with a Cuban filler." And so, from a historical aspect, it made sense for me to go with that blend, and it was fairly easy to come to that conclusion, at least for me. And but I did need to validate that, and I did need to speak with a professional like Jesus about the blending process, because I've never blended a cigar. And I can't say that this is a cigar that I can call my own and say I blended this, but I can say that, I'm gonna play a large role in the process of said blending, and obviously be a part of the rolling experience and bring that to you as well, so you'll be able to see that and watch it unfold in front of your eyes. um, George is very optimistic, and I love that, because I think that, you know they say when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? And if you end up with a box of just cured and fermented tobacco, then I guess you should make cigars. So that's something to say. And you know weighing the number two Partagas at zero point 0.5 ounces, the plan is to use a very small amount of this tobacco. We could concentrate it a little more if we only did 10 cigars. But I really think that with an experienced roller and with a good uh, ratio within the blend, which is something that we talked about very briskly, because I mean, honestly, it was like very simple. You only got but so much tobacco, so let's obviously try to use it sparingly. So much less than an ounce, much less than a half an ounce per cigar. It's gonna be, a couple of pinches. Exact quantity, I don't know right now, but that's something that once I am there with the roller, we can discuss that, and we can, negotiate what the ratio will be. And obviously, he's going to be leading the way because he's a professional. I'm just going to be there for, well, to be a part of the experience, and because I am a part of the experience, and you guys are all coming along for the ride on me with this one. I think it's going to be pretty exciting, and I should be meeting with the guys at Martinez Cigars in a few weeks. And once I'm there, I just expect magical things to happen, because, like George, I'm very optimistic, and I'm feeling very good about this. So we're going to try and see if the 3 ounces actually, you know, can produce more than 10 cigars. And it's possible. I think that it's something that's going to have to be further discussed in regards to, are we going to go for the 10 or the 20, or somewhere in between, find a sweet spot? We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. And aside from that, I guess the rest of what I want to tell you is that there is some history to the brand. George researched a little bit, Georgia Vintage Cigar Store.com, and he didn't find much on it, but I actually did. But it wasn't easy. So I'm not trying to say that it was an easy search. It was really one of my most, I don't want to say my most difficult, but it ranks up there as something that was extremely hard to find and to find information on, because, as George mentioned, the current brand of Alcazar cigars is a brand that is produced by J.C. Newman, and J.C. Newman bought the brand rights, I think, sometime in the 90s. And this is a brand that was created in 1898. Jason Newman's website indicates that as well, that it was created in 1898, and it was named after a famous racehorse of that time period. Now, to go one step further, the racehorse himself was named after what, which was the word that was used to describe Islamic castles back in the medieval times, if I'm correct about the time period. Alcazars were basically palaces and huge homes and estates and castles. So that's what an alcazar is. And horse was named after it, and then the cigar was named uh, after the horse back in 1898 by the Lewis and Kindling Company. Now, Lewis Kindling was the owner of the Lewis Kindling Cigar Company, and he arrived in the United States sometime in 1870 from Prussia, and by 1873 he had already begun a cigar business. But it wasn't until 1898 that the brand Alcazar started appearing on shelves and really had a following. Now, Lewis Kindling was located out in the Midwest. He was considered the Midwest king of the tobacco of the cigar industry and in the tobacco industry. I mean, he had his hands in just so many different things back in the late 1800s and all the way into the 1900s as well. There is so much about him in regards to his importance and the importance that he had on the cigar industry. And he was based out in Milwaukee, to be specific. So I did find some things on him. We'll go over a few things. And then hopefully by the time that I visit the guys at Martinez Cigars, we can kind of join the two events together and really just show you everything that's occurred. Now, Vintage Cigar Store has a lot of pictures on its website, but these were not on the website because obviously this isn't something that is up for sale. These are pictures of what the box of tobacco look like. And as you can see right up here, Alcazar. And then we have the following picture here. Okay. We have another close up. Okay. And there we have another one. So, from an article here in 1881, History of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And this here has a little mention. It says Lewis Kindling, manufacturer and dealer in foreign and domestic cigars and tobacco. Number 225 Reed Street, was born in Prussia, came to America in 1870, and was married the same year to Miss Bera Ribbering. Mr. Kindling is a member of the Odd Fellows, Druids, and Knights of Pythias, and is Deputy Grand Chancellor for the German lodges of the Latter Society for the state of Wisconsin. He employs on average 40 men and manufacturing over 1.5 million cigars annually. So this is 1881, and this is the earliest that I read something about him. August 10th, 1891, it was reported in the Middletown Daily Signal a tragedy that occurred within the Kindling family. Now, you got to imagine this had to be very difficult. This is 1891, 10 years after the last article, and it states 4 people drowned Four young people, children of prominent businessmen, were drowned at Lake Pewaukee, 20 miles from here. Yes, from here yesterday. They were out on a small boat with other young people. A squall struck the boat, capsizing it. It was heavily ballasted and sank almost immediately, leaving the seven people struggling in the water. The names of the drowned are Albert and Emma Barth, Marthin Kindling, and Lara Siegler, their ages ranging from 10 to 20. Their fathers are Louis Kindling, Peter Barth, and Leopold Siegler. The young people had been spending a few days at the lake, which is a favorite resort. And so this was obviously tragic news, not necessarily related to cigars, but uh, definitely something that impacted this man greatly. He was known as a very big community man, a family based man. So this had to really take him off the rails a little bit. So the tobacco leaf, July 5th, 1905, there's a small piece on him. After an absence of about 2 months, Louis Kindling of the Louis Kindling Company is again in the home of Alcazar Cigar. He enjoyed a pleasant trip to Europe and took the occasion to visit with larger manufacturers in some of the metropolitan cities. At the Louis Kindling Company factory, things are moving along briskly, the capacity having been increased, and their product is enjoying well deserved popularity. So, this is 1905, and he is doing very well. Just came back from Europe, right? And in 1909, in the United States Tobacco Journal, some Milwaukee notes. Okay. And it states here the Louis Kindling Company in are rushed to meet the demand of their well-liked brand Alcazar. And so that just proves that the brand at this point was growing in popularity, originating in 1898, and now by 1909, 11 years later, it is well sought after. And there were a lot of notes and information that I found in various articles about, specifically about the uptick in production for Alcazar uh, line. And it's just seemed like at every other article it was talking about the opening of a new factory or the increase in production. So very well sought after cigar. Uh, we'll see what else we find. Okay, so here in 1913, National Drug Clerk published 1913. We go to the back page here, and you see Alcazar, America's leading cigar. Okay, manufactured by Louis Kindling Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that is a very small ad within uh, a publication, National Drug Clerk, but these type of little ads were running all over the place because Alcazar was king in the Midwest and was spreading. The Retail Tobacconist, published November 17th, 1921. And in this particular publication, we have here where there is short on Webster's, a busy local factory is that of the Louis Kindling Company, makers of the Alcazar cigar. For many years, Alcazar has been a leader here and in the Middle West, and with all of the new brands that have sprung up, Alcazar holds all of its old time popular call. So there you go, where they're talking about its dominance. And obviously, at this point in time, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you've got so many Cuban brands, so many people in the biz, so many people making cigars. Competition is fierce. And he seems up to the challenge. I think one of the most surprising things for me that I learned about Lewis Kindling. Uh, I was reading something and I looked it up, and it's called On Wisconsin Milwaukee. It's a publication, a magazine for her business, for business leaders, a magazine for her business leaders. And it was published October 1922 at the price of 25 cents. And in it, there is something that talks about Lewis Kindling. And it says 50 years in business. Lewis Kindling, widely known as Milwaukee's cigar manufacturer, recently completed his 50th year in active business, and the occasion was marked by hundreds of calls from his friends and business associates in Milwaukee, as well as the arrival of a number of letters and telegrams from the tobacco trade all over the United States, in which Mr. Kindling has for years been a prominent figure. Mr. Kindling was the first to standardize on the Java wrapper, introducing it 35 years ago in his now famous Alcazar brand. Mr. Kindling is still active in is still in active touch with his fast growing organization, although his son-in-law, H.L. Buchanan, has of late years been shouldering considerable of the burden of the business, and his grandson, Albert Buchanan, has been made manager of the new Stroughton factory. The Kindling organization numbers many old and loyal employees who have been identified with it for years. The dean of these is Gus Eichrot, superintendent of the Milwaukee factory, who has 48 years of service, continuous service, to his credit. So he standardized the Java wrapper, Indonesian Sumatra wrapper, on the Alcazar brand. And for him to do that, it set other competitors looking towards it as well. And you got that blend. A lot of people were pretty much going with Indonesian wrappers, binders. Maybe some Connecticut tobaccos were used as well, obviously. Many types of tobaccos were used back in the day. And when you had a market that seemed so crowded, everyone was angling for the best tobacco that they could find. Something different, something that you knew smokers would like and that you wouldn't be stuck with. And he struck gold with Java wrappers. The Tobacco, a weekly trade review, established 1886. Uh, this volume is from April 30th, 1925. And in it, we have a small section which says Special Cigar Sales. The Davis Company, operating one of the largest department stores on State Street, ran an advertisement in the papers of John Ruskin, Lucens Henry IV, La Palina, Dutch Masters, Corina, Alcazar cigars at special prices. With each purchase of Alcazar cigars, a factory representative handed out a liberal amount of Alcazar cigars with a little talk to the customer. So it's still going strong here. 1925, the brand seems to still be going pretty strong. Now, in that very same publication, there was another mention of Alcazar cigars, and this one was Sam Meyer, factory representative of the Lewis Kindling Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is meeting with much success in placing his Alcazar Java wrapper cigars in Chicago. Sam is an old-time salesman and knows how to win over the dealer to give him a show, and many fine Alcazar windows are seen around town. So yeah, they're pushing it. This advertisement is from the Owasso Argus Press, August 19th, 1948. And as you can see right there, Alcazar cigars, $2 for a box of 50. And we turn the page here in the Painesville Telegraph, December 14th, 1950. You have Alcazar cigars once again mentioned, along with a few other Blackstone, Chico, Dutch Masters, all of these old-time brands that were very popular in that day. And here you have some of the pictures of the boxes. So the next step is to basically head out to Martinez Cigars and get this show on the road. I want to thank you all for watching this segment of this particular video. Stay with me as we travel to New York City, West 29th Street, Martinez Cigars. I'm here at Martinez Cigars, and the plan is to have the Cuban tobacco that was given to me by Vintage Cigar rolled into cigars. And this is short filler Cuban tobacco from the 1930s, possibly a little later, from the Alcazar brand. And the Alcazar brand was based in Milwaukee, out in the Midwest. And so I've got this short filler, and it's going to be blended with some Dominican tobacco as well as some Indonesian Sumatra. And we're gonna see how this works out. It's gonna be in the Corona Vitola. And so I spoke to the owner here, Jesus Martinez of Martinez Cigars, and he was just so welcoming and so open to the idea. And he said, listen, just come by, bring the tobacco, and we'll work it out. And we've got a roller here, and he'll take care of you. And I just felt like, wow, okay, let's see where this goes. Maybe these cigars will be fantastic. Maybe they won't. But at least we're giving it a go. And thank you, George. So we're going to see where this takes us. And we're going to explore the brand as well. And a lot of the history behind it, because there is some history, of course. Okay, here we are at Martinez Cigars. And Momo, one of the famous rollers here. And of course it's World Cup season, so you're going to hear a lot of background World Cup noise. But this man can work under any conditions. And the blend that we've chosen here is historically accurate in Indonesian Sumatran wrapper and binder. And the only difference in this cigar from the 1930s Alcazar brand would be the addition of the Dominican tobacco combined with the short filler Cuban tobacco that is dated from 1931, possibly a little later, but more than likely 1930s, 1940s. Lewis Kindling Company owned the brand Alcazar, which was named after a horse, which was named after Islamic castles back in the medieval times. And Momo here is going to roll them in a Corona size Vitola, and we're going to see what happens. ¿Está cómo? Pero eso no, ese no es Corona. No es Corona. Vitola. So I mistakenly thought that he was rolling a bigger size ring gauge, but these are 44 ring gauge and probably 5 to 6 inches in length. And he's putting him in the mold, and of course they're gonna take some time there. This man is a master. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for too long. There you see him taking some of the 1931 Cuban tobacco. He's blending in a small percentage per each cigar.
La selección que tiene estos últimos 5 minutos ya no está teniendo tampoco posesión de balón.
So I may have come up with the blend, but I'm not the actual man doing the work. So the percentages were worked out beforehand in regards to the amount of the Cuban tobacco that we could use, just so that we can get enough of it in each cigar. And there you can see that it's at least half an ounce, perhaps, of the Cuban tobacco that's being used. So he's gonna make a sample one for me to try.
I'd rather be drunk with I'm He lose all his vergüenza. All his vergüenza.
We get into the final stretch here with the final amount of Cuban tobacco. And as I'm watching this and recording this, obviously I'm captivated by Momo's abilities here. He did this so quickly. But more than anything, I'm also smoking one of the cigars already, the sample that he provided for me. And it's really good. I can't say any more about it. It's really good. Momo, ¿qué clase de influencia usted piensa que este tabaco de short filler le va a dar al cigarro? ¿Sabe? A veces uno no sabe con la cantidad que uno usa cómo va a darle el sabor, pero en tu opinión, esta clase de tabaco short filler, uno va a poder probarlo en el cigarro. O sea,
le da un buen sabor, un buen aroma.
Entonces sí le ayuda al blend. So I asked him basically what influence the Cuban short filler tobacco would have on this blend, and he says it's going to help with the aroma. It's going to give it a little extra flavor, and he really believes that it's going to help the cigar blend, regardless of the fact that it's short filler, as you can see, and regardless of the fact that it's from 1930. As you can see here, Momo, like most of the rollers at Martinez Cigars, they're machines. Like most rollers, they're smoking a cigar as they're rolling. They're careful in the process. We talked over the blend and the influence that the Cuban tobacco would have, but also the marriage of the Dominican tobacco in the filler, and how the Indonesian Sumatran wrapper, aside from being historically accurate for the cigar, is also going to allow the filler to shine. That was one of the main things. The neutrality of the wrapper and the binder, allowing this filler to shine. If I can tell you what I'm getting from this cigar, I'm getting a little nuttiness, a little saltiness, and some sweetness. It's got a wonderful draw. It's just fantastic. I'm not saying this because this is something that I was part of the creation for, but I'm saying this because honestly, I really truly believe that these cigars are amazing. We decided on some of the choicest Dominican filler that Martinez Cigars has here, which is usually aged a minimum of 3 years, sometimes 4. The Indonesian Sumatran wrapper is in the realm of 1 to 3 years of aging. Perhaps the binder's a little younger.
But the shit what I hated was that Uruguay should have been in that little bracket with France. Oh, bro, that would have been epic. That would have been epic if Uruguay would have gone against France.
Bueno, cuando despeja, ahí con el talón.
France loses the fucking Poland. Una sopita.
Y le dejó ahí un piso.
Ahí llegó Chino. Mira que va a vivir mucho tiempo, ¿verdad? Va a vivir. Lo mencionan.
Nobody got that. It's good, Chino. Don't say, I'll keep in the shirt, right? And there was this breakdown they got. Doing stuff like the things that be on 60
As I'm watching this, I just want to say, once again, thank you, George, for, I guess, for just having the idea to reach out to me and consider me for this project, because I really feel lucky to be a part of it, and being a part of this blend is magical for me. This gentleman, Momo, has been here for over a decade, rolling for Martinez Cigars. He's one of their premier rollers, most respected, very well loved in this establishment.
Es increíble esa imagen.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. So what he's doing here is he's taking some of the ends, he's taking some of the Cuban tobacco out of the ends so that he can use it in another cigar. Very resourceful and efficient. And I expected nothing but the best from the team here at Martinez Cigars. Again, it's World Cup season, guys, so bear with me. These aren't floor sweepings, guys. It's just short filler that has spilled out, and he's accumulating it. There's probably a little bit of Dominican in there as well. but mostly Cuban. And again, this is 1930s, possibly 1940s Cuban pre-embargo.
Yeah, but I was impressed with Ecuador, to be honest. They were playing good. Really good. You feel bad for them?
Secrets of the trade? Well, it depends on who you ask. There are some secrets, but a lot of transparency here. And as you can see, it's just old-fashioned, good old cigar making. Top-of-the-line rollers working with well-aged tobacco, and in this case, some extremely aged Cuban tobacco. So you can see he's grabbing the remaining amount of the Cuban Alcazar tobacco, and it's a little less than an ounce, I think, maybe in combo with the Dominican long filler. Has really shaped up well. Momo, gracias por todo. Momo. I said, Momo, thank you very much. And he said, you're welcome. A master at work. Un maestro a su trabajo. Gracias, Momo. So I, of course, gifted one of these cigars to Momo so that he can enjoy it. And there it is. He's making it, the final one, which he's going to smoke. I told him he could smoke one of the other ones, but he said, no, I'm going to roll this one for me. Perfect. Está bien bonito. Wow. I said it's very pretty.
Cigars.
Alcazar / Martinez cigars. This is the one he rolled for me as a sampler, or as a sample to taste. And we didn't do the normal things that people do when they're trying to create a blend, which is experiment with different secos and bisos and primings and things of that nature. We didn't do that because this was very straightforward, very specific, very simple blend that is tried and tested and true. So using the Sumatran binder wrapper and adding the long filler Dominican tobacco to the 1931 short filler Cuban tobacco was, in my mind, going to work perfectly. I just felt that it was a blend that had been used in the past, in the early 1900s, up until the 1950s, and to some degree in the 1960s. Of course, the 1960s and 70s saw the use of a little bit more of the Puerto Rican tobacco in combination with the Cuban tobacco, and of course there was no Dominican tobacco at that time, at least not of great quality. But here we have great Dominican tobacco of high quality being used. So it deviates a little bit from that traditional blend back in those days, but it adds a twist that I'm really liking. And as I'm sitting here in one of the rollers chairs, which they've been so gracious to let me sit here and do this video, and I've got Momo next to me, and I'm just reveling in this. I don't know, experiencing this cigar and just. The aroma on this is incredible. The draw on it is perfect. And mind you, this is a fresh cigar. So you put this down in your humidor for, you know, a couple weeks, maybe a few months if you want to be a little thorough, which is what I would recommend. But probably not a few months, maybe just a month. And you're gonna get something slightly different, and it's just gonna be a little bit more mature. And in this regard, it's still smoking so good that the promise that it holds, once you've laid it down and let it rest for a bit, is, to me, you know, I'm so looking forward to it.
Yo, but the shit, I give you one thing. No, give you one thing.
Salt in the finish is still there. Minimal pepper, minimal. And really, just some nice,
But I do because she's French.
little slight spice, the cinnamon,
You weren't there with the flag.
and perhaps you have a little bit of residual sweetness as well in the finish. I'm thinking that's coming from the Dominican tobacco. And really, this is just a really good blend. I'm not saying that because I was part of the creation. I'm not saying that at all. All props go to Momo, who actually, you know, based on our conversation, worked out and negotiated the percentages that went into the blend, but also his rolling abilities. And, you know, with the 44 ring gauge, this one's actually more like a 46, but for the most part, they're inside their molds right now, and at 44 ring gauge, at about 5.5 inches, these cigars are just the perfect size, I think. For the time, they would have probably been a little bit, maybe, I don't want to say bigger, but probably just a little bit longer. They might have been 5 inches by 44 back then, whereas here they were 5.5. Not a really big difference, and not a really big deal. I just want to point out the burn line on this freshly rolled cigar. It's just wonderful. So these were the leaves that we were using, and normally you might find that as a blender, not a professional, you would roll some of this with the filler, and you're experimenting and trying, and as you're smoking them, some people will smoke right through it in order to determine certain flavor characteristics. The longer you've been doing it, obviously, the better you're at it. Very flexible leaf. Very ripe. And I say that that's just the smell that you're getting now. Some people may detect some ammonia in certain cigars. I'm not detecting any ammonia whatsoever in these, which tells me that this has been aged for a good amount of time.
Momo, ¿cuánto tiempo añejan esta hoja? Más o menos, como 2 años. 3 años.
So I asked him, just to be sure, you know, this is the wrapper leaf, how much age, how long it's aged, and it's aged for 3 years. And it just smells wonderful. I don't detect any ammonia whatsoever. I said ripe, but I didn't mean, I used the wrong word. It's wonderful. I keep using that word wonderful because I'm in heaven right now. And I'm raising my glass of Dominican rum, and it's going perfectly well with this cigar. It's pairing very well. I just got this rum right now, and I wanted to experience the cigar for a bit without anything, have not eaten in over an hour or so, maybe 2, and I didn't want to drink any rum or anything for that matter until I really experienced the flavors that were coming off of this blend. And really, I mean, you know, from the get, performing really well. So as I'm heading to this final third, I'm getting a lot of cinnamon, a lot of spice, minimal pepper, some slight saltiness, some sweetness as well. In the finish and on the tongue, a lot of cinnamon. And again, this is probably going to change a little bit after this cigar or the cigars have rested. George, it was a bit of a, and I'm speaking to George right now, the gentleman who made this possible in a lot of ways, because he acquired this tobacco from a client in Spain. This whole time my mic was in reverse, so hopefully the audio will be a little better now. But what I was saying basically is that George, you acquired these cigars, or you acquired this tobacco from an estate in Spain or a collector in Spain, and you thought that there were cigars in the box when in fact there was short filler tobacco in the box, and you didn't know what to do with it, and you reached out to me, and I really didn't know what to do with it at first. But then it occurred to me that my people's here, my family here, Martinez Cigars, they could help me, and they can make this happen. And it certainly has been something that I've talked about and planned out over the last few weeks with the guys here, and really just been looking forward to doing this because, one, you know, I was so intrigued by the idea of using tobacco from the 1930s, 40s in a blend that I really couldn't wait. I just couldn't. So I was talking with Momo, and we were talking about the differences of what you experience when you're smoking a cigar freshly rolled versus laying it down for some time. And the biggest difference is that as the leaves dehydrate a bit, and obviously being transferred to a humidor in a controlled environment, they optimize in flavor. So flavor profile shoots up, the burn on it improves, and the overall blend comes together and really solidifies in its flavor profile. And that's what I'm expecting here. If it's smoking this good now, it's probably, more than likely, gonna smoke even better later on. The importance of aroma is never lost on me. And the aroma of this cigar is really nice. And I think that adds another layer, right, as I've mentioned before, in the overall experience of cigar smoking. So that was another thing that we were really looking forward to, was creating something that would have a very good aroma, very good draw, obviously all of the things that cigar makers, not that I'm one, are looking to do. But in line with what people aspire to create, which is a desirable cigar that you will enjoy smoking, we focused on that, on the aroma, on the percentages being the type that would lend to more of a medium-bodied cigar with a mild finish, but with an interesting finish, right? Because you want it to be interesting. And the way that the cigar's flavors coat the palate, particularly when it's very fresh, is interesting because I've smoked freshly rolled cigars before in the Dominican Republic, and I've had great experiences with them, and then obviously slightly better experiences with them once I've laid them down for a month or so. But interestingly enough, the finish on this is just really sweet and spicy cinnamon spice, and just creamy. It was creamier in the first and second thirds, not so much in the final third. The salt is coming up a little bit more in this little nub state, and
If Mbappe gets knocked out, doesn't mean nothing to FIFA. If Messi gets knocked
going really
out,
well with the rum. I just want to thank you all for watching this video. Thank you, George, again. And I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I'm back here at Cigars. Even though I said goodbye, and I thanked you all, and I said, until next time I'm back here at Cigars, I just want to give you guys one final clip of the final process for the cigars. So a little bonus here are the cigars, 20 cigars, and they are being pressed at the moment. Just wanted to give you that little additional footage. I'm here with Jesus Martinez of Martinez Cigars, and I just want to, on camera, thank him for the rolling of the Cuban short filler tobacco that I received. And Jesus,
Nah, it was a pleasure for us. It's something that I never seen, never smoked myself. So I'm looking forward to try it. I'm just going to let them dry it out a little bit. But tomorrow I'm definitely going to try. I'm looking forward to it.
thank you so much, Jesus.
No, thank you for the experience. Never seen that before.
It's really old tobacco, but it worked out good. It tastes good, yeah.
Yeah, once you explained it to me, I figured we were able to do something. Because I had an idea of what it was, but I never seen the tobacco myself.
Well,
try it.
this is a master blender, folks. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Here with Momo, the guy who made it possible as well. I want to give him a big thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to say gracias, hermano, por todo tu ayuda. Okay. And here are the finished cigars, safely within the confines of my home. Aren't they just gorgeous?